I mean, I love Jesus.
Here we go.
My motivation comes from like my willingness to prepare and plan my week. What am I most passionate about? What is a priority in my life? What do I hope to achieve this week, this day, this morning?
All right, hey folks, Mark Devine here with the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Welcome back. I'm super stoked to actually be in our studio, if you want to call it that, here in Encinitas at SEALFIT headquarters with our guest, Steve Weatherford. We had an incredibly fun morning, and there is a video evidence of what we did.
So, you had an incredible time.
So yeah, check back on our website in a week or so, and you'll be able to grab that video at SEALFIT.com.
Ooh, yeah.
Steve, thanks so much for coming by. So Steve Weatherford, NFL punter, played for the Jets and the Giants, Super Bowl champion. Man, first time I've seen a Super Bowl ring today. This thing weighed like 10 pounds, I think. It was pretty cool. Steve is incredibly fit. I mean, he's one of the first kind of, celebrity folks we brought through a SEALFIT operator WOD, and he held his own for all 2.5 hours of training. We'll talk about that experience. That was awesome. And Steve's shifting into kind of a new focus as a speaker, as a motivational expert, as an author, right? Media personality, all sorts of stuff. So he's transitioning, out of football into kind of a new career. So, anyways, Steve lives in New Jersey, but is planning on moving out here to Encinitas.
Yeah, building a home here in Olevenhain. And this has been my my NFL off-season training site for the entirety of my NFL career. And it's a great place to live, great place to raise a family, and it's a melting pot of people. And I've always been a huge military supporter. And this is a military town. It's a military region, between Pendleton and Coronado. There's a very big military influence here. And I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. So it's a good place to train too. It's about 72 degrees every day, and oddly enough, it rains about 5 times a year. And it rained on us pretty good today.
It rained on us real good today.
It was actually pretty good though, because Mark couldn't tell whether or not I was profusely sweating or that I was drenched by the precipitation. So I had that working for me.
Yeah. It's a great place to raise kids too. And you have a family?
I do. I have 4 children. My oldest, I have 1 son, 3 daughters. My oldest is 8 years old, Ace. And then I've got Carney, which is 6, Aurora, which is 3, and baby JJ is 10 months. So,
and a pig.
And I've got a pig and a dog. So I actually just bought a miniature pig about 3 weeks ago. So that's the new exciting thing in my household.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
Cute little thing.
Yeah. So I had the pig for about a week, and then I left for 2 weeks to come out here. So against my wife's wishes, I bought a pig and then left for 2 weeks.
Whatever possessed you to buy a pig? I mean, where the heck did that come from?
I've always taken.
Wake up one day and say, I need a pig.
No, I've always thought it would be cool to have a pig. And during my NFL career, I never felt like I had enough time to be able to help with the pig. But now that I'm kind of making the transition into civilian life, as you guys would call it, I was like, I'm going to buy a freaking pig, man.
I mean, most guys want to buy like a Harley Davidson or something,
I know I'd kill myself on that. My risk appetite is off the charts.
I'm actually getting an Indian pretty soon. I'm just declaring that I wanted an Indian. I had a Harley when I was back in SEAL Team 3, but I haven't had a bike. And my wife really doesn't want me to have one, but I'm going to get myself an Indian.
You work hard, you deserve it. Get yourself two.
Get
it in both colors. That's what I say.
Awesome. So, Steve, let's talk about like your early years. Like, how did you were an athlete. It sounds like you were a pretty effective athlete in high school and college.
I have, since a very, very young age, Mark, I was very, very apparent that I had extreme ADHD. I had a little bit of OCD, and so my childhood was difficult because I wasn't mischievous. I just couldn't sit still. So I was just my mother likes to say in the nicest way she can, I'm just very busy, and not always busy doing the right things. Never in any type of major trouble, but just going to school and the educational system for me was very difficult because intelligence-wise, I was in the gifted and talented courses. I think I'm not sure exactly what it was by the number that jumps out to me. My IQ was like 130, 138 is the number that jumps out to me, but a higher than normal IQ. So I was gifted and talented, but it was too difficult for me to sit down and concentrate on the materials, especially when I had a teacher that didn't let me get up and move around more than the other kids because I'm wired differently. And so during the course of my younger years, it was really difficult for me, and my mother and my father didn't want to put me on prescription medications because they didn't want to affect my appetite and my growth potential and put the chemicals in my body. And so, at probably about age 5, before I even went to kindergarten, my mother put me on like an all organic diet before people really knew anything about all organic.
And it's not vegetarian.
No, not vegetarian. I ate meat. So all organic essentially was I didn't do preservatives and dyes. And so, for example, when a kid would have a birthday party in my class, my mother would send these, like a Tupperware full of cookies that tasted like cardboard. So I could have, so I could have cookies while the other kids were having treats too. And so it was a lot of extra work from my parents. Not just from my diet standpoint, but I just required more attention.
Did the diet have an effect on you?
Yes, for sure. So when I would eat, the preservatives and the dyes, like if I would have like a day when my parents weren't around, I was at my friend's house on a sleepover, I would eat those foods and I would just go bananas. I would bounce off the walls, and I'm already, you've spent half a day with me. I'm a highly energetic person. So the education and school for me was just very difficult, but as soon as I got out of that, and my parents got me into sports at a very young age to try to wear me out and funnel my abundance of energy into something positive like athletics. And very thankful that they did that because I literally have played just about every sport underneath the sun and, have been able to kind of segue that into the passions for fitness and motivating people and inspiring people to overcome whatever it is their adversity is. I remember my mom when I was 6 or 7 years old. Not only was I on this diet, but she also would wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's obviously dark outside, and I would run 3 miles at like age 7 before school, and she would ride a bike behind me with a flashlight. And I would run 3 miles before school because she would try to get some of my energy out, so it would make it easier for me to sit still in class. And I always got A's and B's, but then they would also give you a grade for behavior and conduct, and that was always a D or an F. But I just couldn't control it. It was something that was not just difficult for me; I couldn't do it. But like I said, they funneled that into athletics. And
what were some of the early sports that you did?
Basketball. I never played football. I never touched the football until I was 15, my freshman year of high school. And then once, so let's just say this. Okay, 14 years old, I played 4 sports in high school. My freshman year, I was a soccer player, played basketball, and I ran track. And those were kind of like the 3 power sports for me. And I was good at them, but I was 5'7". I was 108 pounds as a freshman in high school. So I was above average athleticism, but way below average as far as physical stature and strength and power, by comparison to my teammates. And then the football coach came to the soccer coach and said, "Hey, do you have anybody here that has a strong leg and might want to be our kicker, because we don't have a kicker?" And so my soccer coach says, "Yeah, hey, that little skinny kid over there, he's got a big leg." So he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, would you be willing to try to kick field goals for the team?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And it was something that came natural to me because of my background in soccer. And actually my freshman year, I think my second game ever, I hit a 49-yard field goal to win the game. So it's something that came natural to me, but in order for me to become one of the best in the world at it, it took a lot of time and effort and sacrifice. But I made a commitment to myself at 14 years old that I wanted to try to earn a college scholarship. And I knew in order for me to do that, Mark, I was going to have to change things about myself, the way that I lived my life. And I've always, even from my teenage years, 12, 13, 14 years old, I was always really, really big on goal setting.
Where did that come from? Is that
from my grandfather? He was always big because he's the only person that I've ever met who's almost identical to me.
Yes.
I think it makes sense because he's my grandfather. So he was always really big on goal setting, and him and I always had a very special relationship because he saw kind of how jacked up I was, and him at even 60. He died at 69, but even into his 60s, he still had a lot of the things, even at that old age, that I struggled with when I was at 12, 13 years old. So he saw a lot of himself in me. So he spent a lot of time with me because he commiserated. He had some compassion for the things that I struggled with, and so he imparted a lot of his knowledge and life skills that helped him kind of overcome the extreme ADHD. And back in the day when he was a kid, people didn't know that he had ADHD. They just thought he was crazy.
What a gift that was.
Yeah.
A grandfather like that.
Yo, oh my gosh, I couldn't be more blessed. And so he invested a lot of his time and effort and passion into kind of helping me deal with what I was dealing with. And so when I was 14 years old, I made the commitment and I had the vision of one day playing college athletics. And I knew I was going to have to become bigger, faster, and stronger. And so at that point, you couldn't just Google SEALFIT workouts, or you couldn't just Google, basketball, vertical jumping workouts. You had to go to the library. And so it took an investment of time, and having extreme ADHD, it was difficult for me to sit down in a library and read a book, but it was that important to me that I would go and I would find these books and I would read for 20 minutes, and then I would have to get up and walk around the library and sit down and read again. But I empowered myself with the knowledge and the tools to be able to, I had the vision and I set the goal, but now I had to formulate a plan to be able to change my physique and my size and my strength.
Do you remember any of the books or the mentors that
I was, one of them was Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. That was one that I went to for a lot because I didn't know anything about different training modalities or lifting weights, and I knew I could run all day, and I was always a very good natural jumper, but I was weak. I wanted to compete at an elite level, but I lacked the elite size and strength, and so read these books about nutrition, recovery, training modalities, and I developed this plan for myself. And one of the benefits of having ADHD and OCD is the overabundance of energy and focus once you set a goal. So if I don't have a goal and even now at 33 years old, if I don't have a goal or a to-do list for my day, I won't get anything done because I'll just be all over the place. But once I set a goal for myself, I'm more focused and more driven than anyone that I know.
That's true of anyone, actually.
Yeah, well, maybe it is, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I just know that during a normal 24 hours, out of everyone that I know that I achieve more and I get more done in a 24-hour period than anyone that I know. But I've been able to identify my weaknesses of the ADHD, and I've been able to use that overabundance of energy and ability to hyper-focus on something. And then I've used the OCD to do things exactly as I have them planned in my to-do list.
Yes.
And so, long story short, during the 4 years of high school, before school, after school, late at night, I went from 108 pounds in September, and then 4.5 years later, when I actually graduated and walked across the stage to get my diploma, I was 225 pounds. And it was a lot of early mornings, late nights, sacrifice, but I got scholarships in 4 different sports to play at the next level. And I knew once I started to get the attention from the colleges, I kind of recalibrated and set a new goal of playing professionally. And so once
had you chosen football at that time? Or?
Well, then I'm kind of like reviewing these different sports that I play, and I'm like, you know what? Which one do I think I have the ability to play professionally one day? And football was the clear choice. You know, I had a bunch of field goals over 50 yards, a 55-yard game-winning field goal for homecoming, and you just don't hear of those distances being kicked in high school, and I had 6 field goals over 50. So people had started to talk about, wow, he's kicking the distance that NFL guys do. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to run track, and I'm going to play football. So I chose the University of Illinois and just continued to achieve goals and never become complacent and continue to set higher goals and higher goals. You know, when I got to college, I wanted to be all conference in the Big Ten. I did that. Then I wanted to be an All-American. Then I did that. I wanted to break the school record in the decathlon. I did that. I wanted to be an All-American in track. I did that. And then I had an opportunity to start my NFL career undrafted for the New Orleans Saints. And, it was kind of one of those situations where preparation met opportunity. I was competing against a guy that was in his 11th season. He was a Pro Bowler. He's one of the best punters in the NFL. He sustained an injury the first day of training camp, and so I got all the reps in training camp, all the reps in preseason, and I finished the preseason ranked number 1 in punters, and that's how my...
What does it mean to get all the reps? What does that mean?
So he was injured. So typically, if I'm competing with somebody, he'll take a rep, I'll take a rep, like a repetition, like he'll have a kick in practice. I'll have a kick in practice. Right. And I was prepared. I was ready. I did all the work I needed to do to be successful when the time came.
Right. Interesting. So, what years were that? When you went to work?
My rookie year was 2006, and it was 6 months after Hurricane Katrina. So I went down to New Orleans, and it was a ghost town. Yeah. The supermarkets, the only stores that were open were supermarkets, Burger King, and Taco Bell. And the supermarkets, Burger King, Taco Bell, were only open from noon until 4 p.m. And they actually had to bus the workers in from Baton Rouge to New Orleans for those 4 hours. And
Did you guys play in the Superdome, or where?
We played in the Superdome. They during the year that Katrina actually happened was 2005 in September, and they were displaced from New Orleans, obviously, and they played their games in San Antonio and Baton Rouge were their home games, and then obviously their away games. They just went to the different NFL cities, but that was difficult.
How did the team do that year? I mean, was it
not
psychologically?
Yeah, it was super, super difficult for them because a lot of people don't think about the fact that these NFL players have families as well.
That's what I was thinking.
And so you're engrossed in the community. Yeah, you have a routine when you're a professional athlete. You have a routine of preparation and recovery, and even something as simple as an acupuncturist. They're probably displaced to Atlanta or Houston, and so you don't have the typical people who have helped you get ready for a game on Sunday, because everything is it's crazy. So I didn't complain because I was just so thrilled to be in the National Football League and live my dream of being a professional athlete. But looking back on it, it was a very difficult time. But it was fun to be able to be a part of.
Were you walk on, or?
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. So you can walk on in college, or you can be a scholarship athlete, and then in the NFL, you can be a free agent signing, or you can be drafted. There's 7 rounds in the NFL draft, and so each team gets 1 pick in each round. And typically, punters don't get drafted because we're I don't want to say of a low importance level, but essentially, what do you want to spend a draft pick on? A running back, or a backup quarterback, or a starting quarterback, or a punter? So
are punters typically recruited, or are you just
for college? A lot of the times they are for the major Division I teams. 9 times out of 10, they will find the best kickers or punters in the nation and give them a scholarship. And sometimes they'll invite you to walk on, and you can earn a scholarship. And that's essentially what happened to me in the NFL. Is I signed an NFL contract, but nothing was guaranteed. The only guarantee that I had was my signing bonus, and that was $5,000. And to me, I was like a million because I had never had a paycheck in my life that had a comma in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got after taxes and you pay your agent, I think I ended up walking away with like $2,000.
Right.
But that was $2,000 more than I'd ever been paid in my life. And just, it wasn't really about the money. It was achieving that lifelong dream of being a professional athlete. Nobody in my family has ever done that before. And it was a very proud day for me.
I bet. So you played for New Orleans for how many
I played there for 3 years, then I played in Jacksonville for 1 year, then I went to the Jets for 2 years, and then I just finished my 5th year with the Giants last year. And now I'm kind of at that transitional period where I'm still, I don't want to say young, but I'm still very capable of competing at an elite level, and I could continue to play in the NFL. But, you know, my passion has never been football. I always chose football because I knew football would give me the ability to live my childhood dream of being a professional athlete. I never, you know, when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I never really thought that that was something that was even possible. I didn't think it was a feasible thing. I just wanted to achieve and earn a college scholarship. But as, you know, it was just kind of like the daily grind for you all. When you're in buds training, it's one day at a time. You know, it's one rep at a time. It's one operation at a time. And, you know, I remember training here this morning, and before we went through the Operation WAD, you were kind of explaining the entire workload, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and I just reminded myself, you know what, just do one thing at a time, and then before you know it, it's over. You know what I mean?
Thank goodness.
But it was super, super challenging training this morning. And one thing that really impressed me most about the training wasn't, because I was expecting the hardcore, gritty SEAL training because it's SEALFIT. And I know your reputation. I've seen videos. But one thing that impressed me the most about this morning and kind of what you built here, even more than the culture and the encouragement that everybody I trained with, was kind of the mental aspect, and not the mental aspect of what I was thinking. You know, I knew the mental aspect was going to be hardcore, tough, just get through it. But the kind of the component that the dynamic that you bring to this in gratitude and thankfulness and moving forward with positive energy is something that I really, really enjoyed. That I like hard work. But I like to enjoy hard work, and you kind of put me in the state of gratitude with was it box breathing? The box breathing. Just before we even started our workout, you know, we took 6 minutes. It was just a breathing technique, and it really just kind of centered your mind around the work that we were about to do and viewing it more as an opportunity than an obligation. Because if you come into a workout like that with a negative attitude, like, I don't want to do this, you're not going to get through it.
Think about an NFL team box breathing before a game.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be powerful?
Oh, for sure.
It's kind of like an etch-a-sketch. Everyone basically clears the ground, leaves the baggage behind.
Yeah.
And you tap
Because everybody's got that.
tap into that
you know?
deeper essence, and then you go hit it hard, and part of that stays with you. Right, you carry it into.
I was not expecting that from him.
That's cool.
He's a lot more. Mark is a lot deeper individual than what I was anticipating, and I mean that in the most complimentary way.
I didn't even.
You have, you know, the toughness and the grittiness and the hardcore SEAL. You know, I don't want to say mentality, but that's kind of your shell. Like that's what people know you for. But when I got to spend time with you, you're a very deep, cerebral thinker, and I was very, very impressed with
That's
that.
cool. Back to NFL. What was the high point of your career? Like something that you're most proud of, or like the best day of those 10 years? What was that like for you?
Well, a lot of people don't know this unless you have followed my career, but my rookie year, I go to the NFC Championship game, and for people that aren't football fans, that's the game. If you win that game, you go to the Super Bowl. And I did that my first year. In my 4 years that I played in college, I never had a winning season. Never went to a bowl game. And in high school, my team wasn't very good either. So I'd never been on a winning football team, ever. And so I come into the NFL, and I go to the NFC Championship game my very first year. And that opportunity was like, wow, winning's fun.
Showed you what's possible.
You know, but I almost kind of took it for granted because I didn't realize how special it was to get that deep into the playoffs. And we lost that game against the Chicago Bears, and they went on to the Super Bowl and lost to Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. And then there was a dry spell of about 5 years that I didn't even go to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And then my first year with the Jets and Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez as our quarterback, we go to the AFC Championship game and we lose that. And that was a heartbreaker for me because I realized how special it was to get that deep again because it had been so long. And then the next season we do the same thing, go to the AFC Championship game again, and we play the Steelers. We lose, and Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers go on to win the Super Bowl. And then the very next season, I joined the Giants, and we go to the NFC Championship game. And we're playing in Candlestick Park against the 49ers, and we go to overtime, and I had 12 punts during the game. And typically in an NFL game, I probably average about 4 or 5, but in that particular game, it was a field position battle. Both offenses were struggling. Our quarterback spent more time on his back getting sacked than he did standing up throwing the ball. And so they relied on me a lot that game. And I had one of the best games of my career. We punted 12 times, and I was a very pivotal player in the success of winning that game. And then we go to the Super Bowl in Indianapolis, 47 miles from where I grew up and went to high school. And I had the greatest game of my life. I set a Super Bowl record for most punts inside the 10-yard line. I had 4 punts. I had 0 return yards. And, Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth were the announcers for the game. And Al Michaels even said at halftime, he said, if we're voting for Super Bowl MVPs right now, my vote goes to the punter, Steve Weatherford. I don't know if that's ever been said before. So it just makes having a Super Bowl ring and showing that to people. I get a little bit of a swell of pride because I really felt like my team would not have won that without me. And I'm not saying that to be arrogant. I'm very, very proud of it because there was so much hard work that went into the preparation of having the opportunity to play in the Super Bowl in front of like 72 million people. Everybody in the civilized world is watching that game, and to be on that stage and to be that impactful and to play that well just makes that Super Bowl ring super special for me.
What year was that?
That was in 2011, 2012 season. Okay. February 5th, 2012 to be exact.
I was on the grinder doing outlaw.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were probably, knee deep in blood and guts protecting our country, and I'm punting a football. You know what I mean? So it's all relative, but it's having the opportunity to kind of spend the last 6 hours with you and hear the stories and kind of soak up some of your motivation and intelligence and outlook and optimism has been really it's been a life changer. Something I was really looking forward to. But I've gotten much more from a depth of personality from you today. You're a lot deeper person than I thought. Yeah. You're much more intelligent. And I knew you were a good entrepreneur, and I knew you were a tough Navy SEAL. But the Kokora yoga that we did this morning, I've never done anything like that before, and I do hot yoga, once a week. But that Kokora yoga, I feel like it translates a whole lot more to fitness and athletics than the hot yoga that I've done as part of my routine.
Yeah, we have another punter coming through our 2-day yoga training.
Yeah, Tim Mastey.
Tim
Mastey, Green Bay Packers, also a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah. So
really
he caught
good
the
guy.
bug, and he's going to be here this weekend.
That's good.
So what about the low point? Like, what was the worst moment of your NFL?
The worst moment of my NFL career would be the AFC Championship game in 2010. It was a huge motivator for me. So it was the biggest game of my career up until that point, the third time that I've been to the conference championship game. And if it was nerves or the weather, because it was 8 degrees and it was windy, and it just made the conditions very, very difficult for me to execute my skill. And I performed really really poorly, and impacted my team negatively in the biggest game of the year. And I think that's probably the reason that the Jets didn't ask me to come back to the team. And so I went to the Giants, and I thought, what better place after that game? I had never trained as hard or consistently or more intensely than I did that off season. And I just took 6 months, and I was so focused on improving my weaknesses and also continue to develop my strengths, because I didn't ever want to have that feeling again of disappointment in myself, but also letting down, the other 52 guys that were on my team and my coach, because I was just embarrassed, and after the game going into the locker room, I didn't want to look anybody in the eye because I felt like I let everybody down. And they definitely noticed that I didn't play well, and I'm probably harder on myself than anybody else is. But that's a really lonely feeling when you work hard up into the biggest game of your life and you pretty much crap the bed. So I took that 6 months and had never been more focused. And I've always been focused, but had never worked as hard as an intense with the frequency that I did. And then the next season in 2011 was the greatest season of my life. I broke almost every franchise record for the New York Giants, went to the Super Bowl, and just had the game of my life. And then after that season, the New York Giants wanted to have me back so bad that they made me the highest paid punter in the National Football League. So, I went from 12 months prior, the lowest point of my athletic career, to fast forward 12 months and a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of focus to feeling like I was on top of the world. And the only thing that changed was my mindset. I've always been a hard worker, but I ratcheted it up and took it to a new level. And it's a very fulfilling feeling to make the investment in yourself, but then to reap the benefits only 12 months later.
I think that's such an important lesson for people who are really super successful, is that new heights are often preceded by new lows, new depths.
And
you
100%
use that
the
as
case.
motivation to catapult yourself towards.
Because I easily could have taken the situation where it was the biggest game of my career and just accepted the fact that, in the big game,
Right.
I melt.
And how many people take that failure personally, and then they obsess about it, and they carry that regret. And
They just let them beat you up.
Yeah, it's like beating yourself up every day. It's like beating yourself over the head with a kettlebell. Let that stuff go and use it as motivation.
It was a tough off season for me because you play that game knowing that if you would have played well, your team probably would have gotten into the Super Bowl, and who knows, you might have won the Super Bowl. So you might have cost your teammates, your coach, your fans, your city an opportunity to get a Super Bowl, and that weighed really heavy on me for 6 months because I don't get another opportunity to really redeem myself fully until I get to a game of that magnitude again. And I didn't know if I'd ever make it to a game of that magnitude again. I knew that I was going to get to play football again, but I didn't know that I'd ever get to the opportunity of another conference game when my team needed me and I'd be able to answer the bell. I didn't know. I was scared to death when I went to the NFC Championship game the next year. I felt confident that I was ready, but here I am again.
Yeah.
Am I really ready? I know I prepared as well as I can, but am I really ready? Am I going to melt, and get nervous and crap down my leg like I did last year?
Did you have any mental strategies to overcome that kind of fear?
Yeah, the place that I've always drawn my confidence from, there's not any breathing techniques. I mean, I used breathing techniques, but going into a game, the place that I drew my confidence and my swagger from was all of the work that I did leading up to that. So knowing, I knew
you had a mental representation of all that work.
So when I hit that field, I knew 100% that I took every single opportunity over the past 11 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days. Mm-hmm. Every opportunity I could to prepare myself mentally, physically, emotionally to be my best. So I knew the next time I got into the championship game that I was either going to be successful, and if I failed, I knew that I gave it my best chance. I put together my best package that I could in order to be successful in that situation. And if I failed, I would have handled that failure better because I knew that I did everything I could, and maybe I just wasn't good enough, and I could accept that. But I never wanted to feel the way that I did the year before.
I'm not going to use the word regrets. I know you don't carry your regrets forward, but anything that you would do different during your NFL career?
During my NFL career, you know what, man? I've worked hard, and that's one thing that I never want to regret. I wish I would have prepared more or worked harder. So from that standpoint, no. But knowing what I know now, I probably would have worked smarter and not necessarily harder, or maybe a combination of the both.
At lunch, you were telling me about your ankle injury. That might be one example of that.
That's definitely, but I'm still proud of that. I don't regret that. So I'll share the story.
Steve told me about his $1 million mistake.
Yeah, literally $1 million mistake. 2012, the first game of the season, we're playing Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions. And
by the way, quick pause. One of our SEALFIT coaches was a former Detroit Lions.
Okay.
Price.
Yeah, well, they thumped us that night. So it was my second punt of the game, and I had a phenomenal preseason. And it was just really, I had my sights set on goals that I'd never achieved before. I wanted to be a Pro Bowler. I wanted to break the records that I hadn't broken for the New York Giants. And my second punt of that season, I get a helmet to my ankle of my plant foot and tear 4 ligaments in my ankle. 2 of them were completely torn off the bone. And, as soon as I hit the ground, I hear the pops and the cracks. I knew it was more than just a twisted ankle. And I remember my dad telling me, if you can get up, get off. Meaning, if you can stand up, get off the field. Don't ever let anybody cart you off the field unless you're dead. You know what I mean? It's kind of the mantra you guys have, man. If you got breath in your lungs, you can fight. So I hobbled off the field, and they put about 3 pounds of tape around my ankle. I finished the game. Then we get the MRIs. Long story short.
You didn't play anymore, did you?
Yeah, I played the rest of the game because we don't. Yeah, we don't have in the NFL, different than college. You don't have a backup punter. There's one punter on the roster. There's one kicker on the roster.
Did you have any kicks after that?
Yeah, I had 3, and one of them was actually really, really good, and then the 2 of them were just okay. But they were much better than what my kicker could have done. Right. So if a kicker gets hurt, the punter will fill in, and if a punter gets hurt, the kicker will fill in. But
What's
I knew
between a kicker and punter?
A kicker kicks field goals, scores points, and kicks off, and a punter punts the team to the other.
So you weren't doing field goals.
No, I was not doing field goals. The kicker did that, but I knew, even injured with the damage I had to my ankle, I knew I was going to do better than him, and I didn't want to let my teammates down. Okay. So I finished the game. I had the MRIs. Long story short, 4 torn ligaments, 2 complete off the bone. And due to my background in running track in college and jumping, the musculature around my ankle was surprisingly strong enough to make my ankle stable enough for me to kick again. So it was a mistake. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have done it. Not just because it cost me money, but it just wasn't a smart decision.
So you played another 15 games?
Yeah, so I could have gone on injured reserve, and I still would have gotten paid my full salary and had time to heal. But it's kind of like that tough man mentality. I wanted if I could stand up, if I could punt, I was going to punt.
Was that pride, or wanting to be there for your teammates? Or
I think it was mostly pride. I'm embarrassed to say, but I think it was mostly pride, and just trying to prove something to other people and prove something to myself. I didn't. I hate it when people are like, "Oh, you're just a punter or you're just a kicker," because people think we're just soft, and for the most part, we are. But I always took pride in building my physique and my strength. I didn't want to be viewed as just another punter. So I finished off the season, and on average during my career, I probably ended up 5th or 6th in the NFL as far as out of the 32 punters. And that season, I ended up 18th out of 32 because of my ankle. and they didn't care about my ankle. They kind of look at, okay, you're getting paid the fourth most out of punters in the NFL, and you finished 18th. We need you to take a $1 million, a $950,000 pay cut, or we're going to cut you. And I knew if they cut me, if I tried to go to another team, I wouldn't be able to make that much money. I wouldn't be able to make more money because I was ranked 18th in the league and I'm coming off of an injury. So I took the cut, and it cost me $1 million because I tried to be a tough guy. But looking back, I proved a lot of things to myself as far as toughness is concerned, but I also learned to not be so prideful.
Right. That's fascinating. So you think this is your last season last year? You haven't declared your intent to retire?
No, I haven't announced my retirement because
Are you leaving your options open still? Or?
I want to keep that option open, and I'll probably make a 100% decision in probably 2 months before training camp starts. I want to be decided. I want to announce my retirement, or I want to play again. So right now, I'm just having so much fun doing things like this, learning from different people from different walks of life. My true life fulfillment comes from motivating and inspiring people to live happier, healthier, more fulfilling lives. And I've played in the Super Bowl. 72 million people watching me, and I actually get more fulfillment. I get more of a natural high from walking into a high school auditorium and speaking to 15 and 16-year-old kids and sharing my story of essentially what I just shared with you, and how don't let anybody put a ceiling on what they think you can do. We're so much more capable than what we give ourselves credit for, but we get caught up in having these big dreams and aspirations, and there's so much development that has to happen in between where you're at now and where the ceiling is, or where your vision and goal is. It's very daunting. It's kind of like me looking at the operator's WOD today, this is training that I've never done before. It's intimidating, but I've been able to overcome obstacles and develop. I've come a long way. So I knew, I'm just going to take this one movement, one repetition at a time. But it's so important in life to surround yourself with positive, encouraging, optimistic people, and that's the culture that you have here at the SEALFIT HQ. And Tommy and Joe and John and yourself and Danielle were the reason that I was able, to push through some of the physical agony. But it was more mental. With them just encouraging me, like, we're halfway there. We're a third of the way there. I'm like, quit telling me how far we are. Just tell me, you can do 2 more. But yeah, there was definitely a mental block when we were doing the strength portion of this workout that I physically didn't think I could do the next set of 6 dips. And I just jumped in and I said, I'm just going to give it everything I got. And I was able to get through it. And, I felt really good about what I was able to do here. I wasn't nearly as good as what I want to be, but, at least I have a baseline for where I started, so I can come back next time. I have some things to work on and some homework to do, but I'll be back.
I got a challenge for you, and that is to commit to doing our Kokoro Camp.
Yeah,
which is
I'm in.
50-hour nonstop.
I can't wait to read that book.
Yeah. Well, this is Kokoro Yoga. Kokoro Camp is the crucible. So you look at Kokoro Yoga as the daily internal development, right? Mm-hmm. Developing the internal domain so you can win in your mind before you step foot in the battlefield. Kokoro Camp is the battle. Mm-hmm. That's 50 hours of non-stop training.
I need some yoga first before I do the battle. Because I did 2 hours of the training with you.
Right, you need a little bit more endurance training, rocking under load, some running. Kokoro Camp you should be fine with. It's all about the team, stepping outside of yourself, and then finding that new 20.
When you say step outside of yourself, you're essentially saying get outside your comfort zone.
Way outside your comfort zone, but way outside your ego as well. Mm-hmm. Like there's, in Kokoro Camp, you might need to be carried literally. As the strongest guy stepping into that event, you might be carried physically or emotionally by
I was definitely
by someone like Joe, who's 59 years old. Because you don't know where you're going to break and someone else is going to be strong. And that's kind of the essence of that team. It's like you're there together. You're there to go through.
And everybody's
this
got
trial by
strengths
fire.
and weaknesses.
Right. And so that it's a profound experience when you get through that, and you have to go through all layers. Right. Physical. You start out as a physical thing, and then it's a mental thing, and then after a while, because of the sleep deprivation, it's not so mental anymore. It's emotional, and then it's like you're really having to tap into that willpower.
Would you compare that to like an Ironman as far as the physical demand and the mental
I'll
demand?
tell you what, Derek Price was our Detroit line guy. Now, he is a lot like you guys, have some similarities. After he ended his career because of a broken neck after 3 seasons. So, he kind of had short change there. But so he went into like endurance sports. He was doing Ironmans and like swimming ultras, always trying to find the next toughest thing to do to kind of prove that he was still in the game. So he came to Kokoro Camp thinking it was like that. And when he said at the end, first of all, it was nothing like an Ironman. It was equivalent to at least 3 back-to-back Ironmans in one event. But he said that what the really profound thing was this whole, especially for an NFL guy, it was this notion, a new concept of what teamwork really was. It's kind of like what you experienced this morning. SEAL team, to be a teammate, you've got to be literally willing to lay down your life. Now, we're not asking you for that, but you have to metaphorically be able to lay down your life for somebody. And so
give everything
a
you
lot
have.
of professional athletes don't get that experience because of the money and the agents, and
for sure.
it's not there.
It's definitely not a selfless sport. I enjoyed playing in the NFL because of the platform that I was placed on. But
There's a lot of positive things. Don't get me wrong.
for sure. No, but I'll tell you this: my most fond memories of athletics in my entire life were high school basketball. Yeah. And the relationships that I made. We didn't win any championships or anything like I did in football, but there wasn't all the crap. There wasn't the endorsements. There wasn't the NFL contracts. Money wasn't on the line. It was literally about me trying to give everything I had to the guy next to me and him to me to put together the best product we could as a team, and using my strengths to overcome, to make up for somebody else's weaknesses and vice versa. It was those were definitely the most fond memories I had as an athlete. Was high school basketball in Indiana.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well, we've been kind of going a little bit for a while here, so let's wrap this thing up. Do you have any place what's your favorite place to send people to learn about you? You got a reality show?
You know what? I'm involved in a lot of things, but I think one thing that I've really done a good job of, and really that's the way that I've branded myself and shared a lot of my journey, is on social media. Whether it's Instagram or it's Twitter or it's my Facebook fan page or it's Snapchat. I really take a lot of my time. I probably, on a normal 24-hour period, I probably invest at least 3 hours into social media throughout the day, answering questions, either posting what I'm doing that day. Like I filmed the entire workout with you, and I'll go home tonight, and with my business partner Michael Martucci, we'll spend time editing that, putting that on YouTube. So I've got a YouTube channel. I'm hyperactive on Snapchat. I probably put up, at least 15 or 16 Snapchat videos from our time here today, whether it was knowledge from you or the training or how bad it killed me. I would definitely say if anybody has any questions or wants to know more about me or just, wants to interact and follow along in the journey, I love making new friends. That's why I'm here today. I have no benefit to be here today than to learn from you and have the experience of this, what SEALFIT has to offer. And I couldn't be more thankful that I took time out of my day to come here and get outside of my comfort zone and grow as a person. So I would say social media, if anybody wants to plug in, it's at Weatherford5 on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and Steve Weatherford is my fan page on Instagram, and that is also my YouTube channel.
All right, we'll make sure that we like you and connect with you on our Facebook as well. And thank you so much for your time. It's been
a real true honor, man. I really mean that.
We'll have to do it again, and I'm serious about Kokoro Camp.
I got a lot of homework to do and some yoga to add into my routine, but I shall be back. It'll be Steve Weatherford 2.0. Hoo-yah.
All right. Also, before I sign off, folks, one more time, warrioryoga.com. Check it out. Train hard, stay safe. Thank you, Steve. See you next time.
God bless.